Good evening. Call to order this meeting of the school committee on Thursday, March 16th. It is 6 p.m. and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Good evening, everybody. We will start with our audio disclosure to see if anyone in the audience other than the town is recording tonight's meeting. No. That's definitive. Thank you. And that brings us to our public comment section with the opportunity for anyone in attendance to make comments. Also definitive. Thank you. We have our, on our agenda, the next item is our consent agenda. This evening, we do not have the minutes prepared from our last meeting, so if it is the pleasure of the board, I'd like to skip over.
Table them.
Yep, table the minutes.
So moved.
Chair.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on tabling the consent agenda? All right, and the vote. Alicia?
Yay.
Greg?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That brings us to our superintendent's report. Mr. King.
Great. We're going to start this evening with just a quick update on the FY24 budget. As you know, I think our hearing is scheduled for the 27th, so we just wanted to give a brief update today in preparation for the 27th, where we'll actually vote on the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Babinski to give us a quick update.
So I have given you an updated packet. It does include the cover page, summary page, as well as the backup pages. We are tightening up as we get some of our actual percentages for out-of-district tuition at collaboratives, some of our leasing costs, for example, Chromebook costs, and we sort of tighten our salary line items there. So you will see the numbers fluctuate until the 27th when we have our final budget. We are still waiting on some indirect costs information and revenue information from the town, which you'll see on that summary page there. So for tonight, we wanted to kind of update. As you know, we are seeing a substantial increase in our foundation budget. And just giving you a little bit of an overview and emphasize the priorities that were intended with the Student Opportunity Act so that you can kind of see our budget priorities before the 27th. We had a very good question last week regarding Chapter 70, and if it was a certain amount of money that was allocated for Chapter 70 and how that got dispersed from communities. So we did get an update yesterday from DESE, the MASBA conference. The preliminary FY24 Chapter 70 is actually $6.5 billion. It's a $586 million increase, which is 9.5% over the Chapter 70 number for FY23. And so that was the big driver of the Student Opportunity Act, was that the legislation was going to allocate more money for education so that we can realize that at the district level depending on the needs. So there is a substantial amount of money that's going into Chapter 70, and therefore our Chapter 70 is seeing a large increase. The Act established new higher foundation budget rates in 5 main areas: benefits and fixed charges, guidance and psychological services, special education out-of-district tuition, English learners, and low-income students. And so basically, when they came up with the foundation budget formula, we have seen nominal increases based on inflation over the years. And so we know that insurance costs are significantly higher in 2023 than they were in 2012. And the Chapter 70 formula was not keeping up. And so districts were really struggling. You know, obviously they have to pay their health insurance costs, and it was taking away from instructional costs. And so this really, again, the drivers behind the Student Opportunity Act are these areas of high need expense. The foundation rates for this year's SOA rate changes is capped at 4.5% for inflation. And so it's very hard to see on the screen I can send you a copy, but it is included in our Chapter 70 formula, the foundation budget for Winchendon. And as you can see, our low-income foundation budget is 25% of our total budget. So we are definitely benefiting from the Student Opportunity Act in these rate changes that really are going to hit on those main 5 areas, but particularly we know that it costs more money to meet the needs of our high-need subgroups than it does in some of our other instructional areas. And so this just breaks down exactly by enrollment and the rate, and you can see our total foundation budget there. Any district that was allocated more than $1.5 million reports out on where their budget increases are being realized. And so we did get a summary from DESE as to the evidence-based program areas that most districts are putting in their plans. And so the areas are implementation of high-quality instructional material, whether that's software or actual tangible textbooks, things like that. Inclusion and co-teaching, so really moving away from that substantially separate and pull-out model, and including some push-in services where special education teachers work within the classroom. Obviously, you still have your traditional special education classrooms where you have the need, but really working on pushing into the classroom as well for instruction. Addressing SEL and mental health needs. Research-based early literacy programs, including focusing on pre-K programs, as well as implementing full-day kindergarten if your district does not have that, but really looking at those 2 grades and implementing some serious intervention in early literacy to help those students. Equitable and culturally responsive learning environments. Acceleration academies. This could be anything from your vacation week boot camps to your before and after school tutoring sessions, intervention in extension of the regular school day, and then early college program, whether it be dual enrollment or something like that. One thing that they talked a lot about yesterday was Commissioner Riley's goal number 3 for the school year 22-23 was to cultivate safe and healthy learning environments. And so we had a huge push and focus on learning loss following the pandemic. But anybody working in education really noticed that we needed to sort out the basics for our students, making sure that their mental health was taken care of, that they had food, that they had suitable housing, so just really meeting their basic needs. And so a lot of these funds were allocated to help with some of those areas as well, including the universal feeding, some of the increases that we saw in ESSER. You had to have a certain percentage to assist with mental health needs, SEL, all of those kinds of things. So our budget priorities in the FY24 budget, we put a focus on supplement versus supplant, and it's something that sort of drilled into us as we look at our grants, but really should be a part of your budget, making sure that you're meeting all of the needs of your students and then adding in all of the extras. So one of the ways that we're looking to do that is reserving your trust contributions for student enrichment. So because these rates and inflation and our costs versus our needs were so sort of out of whack, things like our Chromebook leases, which we know we need for students, had to be put into some of the trust contributions that we received in order to just meet the needs of students. So really focusing on supplementing versus supplanting. Maintaining all your ongoing initiatives and priorities from the last few years. Addressing your special education needs. Maintaining as many ESSER-funded positions as allowable. We know that you did a very, very good job in allocating ESSER funds for less than a handful of positions. A lot of districts are realizing what they're calling the ESSER cliff because, they hired all these people to meet all their needs and now they're going to be gone. And so we know that the few positions that we hired and funded through ESSER, we're really addressing high-need areas in nursing and social-emotional and academic intervention. And then implementing the Student Opportunity Act as intended. So again, we're focusing on the main areas there. Next steps, we'll have our budget hearing on March 27th. I did give you, again, the updated cover sheet and backup, so hopefully you're getting used to sort of the chart of account structure and the budget by location, just to kind of look at. It is very different than sort of the running tab, so I'm certainly open to questions if you have any.
Thank you. Questions for Amanda?
Mr. Chair,
Greg?
just real quickly, how many ESSER-funded positions do we currently have?
It's 4 or 5. So if you'll recall, I don't, gosh, a couple of years ago now, we put in positions specifically for nursing,
Yeah.
which thankfully we did. So we have those, and we have a couple of really social workers, which we thought would be really more of a temporary piece coming out of COVID. And what we're finding is, more than likely, that's more of a permanent piece that we need to continue to sustain. And so as we saw, that was an SOA as sort of a driver. And so what we're looking to do this year is to move those out of our ESSER grant and into the general budget. So they're folks that are already here, but we're taking those out of that grant and bringing them into the budget as we realize that we actually need them in the long term and it wasn't really a short-term fix. But to answer your question, I think off the top of my head, it's 4.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It is 4.
Other questions? A couple quick questions. One is on the Student Opportunity Act. That's the first time that I've seen the categories listed. Thank you. That's really incredibly helpful. The one that I thought would be there that was missing was appropriately funding underfunded school districts, not necessarily focused on individual tasks, but that sort of requires that you pay attention to those areas rather than just supplementing your budget with the monies that you need. Am I to read all of those bullets correctly, that those are focus areas we need to use SOA on?
Yes, I mean, I think speaking a little bit towards what you're alluding to is that low income percentage. And so districts that have, those high need subgroups are the districts that are underfunded. And when they were calculating your net school spending and your required school spending for the year, it was cutting short what you were actually needing. So there was like a percentage that they would use for low income rather than allocating money specific for each student that identified as low income. Same thing with special education. They were taking a very small percentage of your total enrollment. I believe it was 1%. And they gave you a set amount of money for 1% of your population, where, some districts are on the low end of having 10%. Some districts are 30%, and the average is 20%. And so when you're only receiving funding for 1% and you're an average district and have 20% of your student population of special education, you're seriously underfunded. And so it was looking at some of those rates and really helping with some of that, yes.
And just to follow up on that, at the end of each year, and we just have received this from DESE, is we owe them a report at the end of each year to talk about how we're addressing those categories relative to SOA. So, it's relatively comprehensive, and we'll generate that report on all the types of things we're doing, whether it's early literacy or social emotional, and we give that back to DESE to sort of reconcile with them providing us with those SOA funds.
That was part of the legislation, is that these reports would be generated every year. DESE puts together, again, a very comprehensive report, but just to show legislators that the funds that they're allocating are being used specific to meet the needs that were advocated for.
Mr. Chair.
I just wondered if there was thank you, Mr. Chair, if we could get copies of that report for the committee?
Sure, when it's finished,
Yeah.
we can bring that here and report out.
Okay.
I wouldn't anticipate that before, somewhere at the end of May, something to
Right,
that effect, but absolutely, we can make that a part of an agenda item. In
Okay.
fact, I'll write it down now as a future agenda item.
Thank you.
Karen?
I was just going to say, if you ever want a really comprehensive rundown of where SOA came from and how this all came together, Tracy Novick, if you want to go back to where the fight came from, a lot of us have worked really hard on getting the Student Opportunity Act in place for years, but she has an amazing blog that outlines a lot of this, and for the layman, So you don't have to know all the jargon or know, all the great things that you do, obviously, and that Thad does. But it's a great blog, and there's a lot of, and she has it detailed and actually put into categories so that you can just go to, it was originally, foundation budget review, fighting with Sonia Chang Diaz to get it on, to the Senate, get it to the local representation, and get them to fight for it for us. So if you ever want to learn, a little bit more or get in depth with it, it's a great resource, as Tracy Novick is the queen of everything budget, so.
Other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Great. I think the next item is just a quick sort of early childhood literacy center / school reorganization update. Really, at this point, we're sort of hopscotching the meeting, so it's kind of similar. Due to some issues, we had 2 meetings didn't happen last week, they happened this week, so they're very similar pieces. The big piece here is where we're at, I think, is really, folks are going through the buildings and looking at sort of room and/or pod, which what we refer to Memorial as having pods, kind of the configurations, where people are going to live, so to speak, what makes sense, where would 5th grade fit in the middle school, and so on. So really taking tours, looking at where they want to live in those buildings, and then also talking about the furniture needs and what those needs are going to be as we go forward. The second piece is really separate from the committee meetings, if you will, in a way, but is myself talking with the president of the WTA about paid days for packing and that type of thing. So Ms. Rondeau and I are making some progress around, and I think you asked about it, Mr. Chair, when we were going down this road, is would we be looking at giving some teachers some paid days to do some of that packing? And so Ms. Rondeau and I are currently working on that as well to hammer that out, relatively soon. So that is the update on the Early Childhood Literacy Center and school reorganization.
Great. Questions on that for the superintendent? Fantastic. That brings us to Angelina and the student report.
Okay. So starting off with some upcoming dates, March 20th through the 24th, Memorial School will be having their book fair. March 21st is World Down Syndrome Awareness Day / Crazy Sock Day. More on that later. March 24th through the 25th is our high school's tournament of plays. March 29th is a half day for the entire district, and the 29th is also middle school spring pictures. And then April 17th through the 24th is our spring break. So starting off with older news, I'm happy to share that I, along with 5 other students from the Murdoch High School Student Council, had the privilege of attending the Massachusetts Association of Student Councils annual state conference in Hyannis for the first time ever last weekend. This year was the first time that MASC was able to put on a state conference since the COVID pandemic, and we were so happy to have the opportunity to participate this year. We attended numerous workshops put on by student council representatives from across the state, all involving communication, teamwork, problem solving, leadership, etc. Murdoch also presented a workshop to MASC delegates on Wreaths Across America and our role in the event and its significance in our town. During the workshop, we presented information regarding the event and encouraged the representatives from each school to get their council involved. Students Tiana Gressel, Abby Guerra, and I were recognized as Commonwealth Award winners at the event for demonstrating hard work and dedication to our student council. Personally, one of the highlights of the trip for me was participating in the Special Olympics polar plunge. Our council dressed up as Pitbull, the singer, and our theme was Mr. Worldwide Inclusion. We raised $1,220 for the Massachusetts Special Olympics organization. There's some really good pictures that I need to show all of you afterwards of our council here. And then also, I have some fun things here. So this is a certificate for our our Gold Council of Excellence Award. And I also have our Council of Excellence book that all of you can look at later. But So the MASC Excellence Award is a way to chronicle our student council's achievements each year. There are 31 indicators totaling to 50 points. Indicators are in areas of governance, community service, school spirit, inclusivity, civic duty, workshop presentation, transition events for younger students, and participation at the state and national level, and more. In order to earn excellence recognition, a council must meet a minimum of 40 points. For silver level, a minimum of 44 points, and for gold level, a minimum of 47 points. Our Murdoch High School Council has been recognized as a gold council in Massachusetts. So we usually get a plaque, but this is what we were given. There were so many schools that came from across the state, and it's really cool that our little school has been recognized as one. And I encourage all of you to look through this book afterwards because we worked hard on it. But moving on from MASC, the Massachusetts Music Educators Association All-State Festival at Boston Symphony Hall, scheduled for Saturday, March 4th, was unfortunately canceled due to weather. A makeup date has not yet been set. Murdoch senior Tiana Gressel will be performing, and tickets are available for purchase through the Symphony Hall box office or by calling 1-888-266-1200. There will be a bottle and can drive benefiting the Dominican Republic service trip on Saturday, March 18th at the high school from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., so bring your donations. And so World Down Syndrome Day. It's on March 21st. The 21st day of March was picked to signify the uniqueness of the triplification of the 21st chromosome, which causes Down syndrome. Every year on this date, World Down Syndrome Day is observed to create awareness for people with Down syndrome. Ms. Fry's leadership and citizenship class and Ms. Ellis's all class are excited to coordinate some events surrounding World Down Syndrome Awareness Day for Murdoch High School. So the first event that we're doing is a sock drive, where we're going to be having last period classes at the high school compete to see who collects the most new socks to donate to kids in need. Socks are one of the most requested items in shelters and clothing pantries, and the donations that we receive will be distributed to our Community Action Center in town, as well as the Murdoch Clothing Pantry. The last period class that collects the most socks will receive a pizza party at a later date, which is to be determined. And our sock collections run from March 13th to the 24th. We will have donation boxes at the high school. I don't know about the middle school yet. But we will have drop-off centers for people outside of the school who want to donate. And then in addition to the sock drive itself, we're also encouraging you to wear your craziest pair of socks on March 21st. Not only will you look super cool, but the fun socks serve as a conversation starter between participants and people who are unaware of World Down Syndrome Day. This is a great opportunity to educate and inform about the significance of the celebration. And then the annual Morton E. Converse Tournament of Plays will be held at Murdoch High School on March 24th and March 25th. Each cast of students from each of our classes have been rehearsing to perform in the competition for Best Play, so make sure to stop by and show your support. Tickets are $7 and are available from any cast member at the door or at the door the night of the performances. On Friday, March 31st, Tiana Gressel and I will be attending the Student Government Day at the State House with Ms. Rondeau. At Student Government Day, delegates participate in different legislative sessions with students acting as senators, representatives, and governor. On March 31st, from 5 to 6 p.m., Toytown Elementary will be presenting Toytown's Got Talent in the Toytown Auditorium. This is a talent show for Toytown students grade 3 through 5. Auditions will be held during lunch for students hoping to participate. As spots are limited, auditioning does not guarantee you a spot in the show. Please visit the Winchendon Public Schools website to register for the event. Speaking of registration, kindergarten registration. If your child will be 5 years of age by August 31st or of the forthcoming year, they're able to they're eligible to enroll in kindergarten. Screenings will begin Wednesday, May 31st, and registration can be completed by filling out the form located at www.winchendonk12.org/o/mes. And then for sports, Murdoch High School Cheer received the MSSAA Gerald H. Silverman Cheerleading Team Sportsmanship Award. In the fall of 2020, Murdoch High School was nominated by fellow competitor Grafton High School for this award. On March 12th, 2023, we were awarded the award, and then the fall 2022 team for our high school was Genevieve McShee, Mindy Merritt, Emily Whiteman, Ariane Daigle, Maya Drake, Clayton Tenney, and Vanessa White. Congratulations, team. And then finally, for spring sports registration, it is now open on www.familyid.com. If you plan on playing, please sign up as soon as possible and be sure to have a valid physical on file with the nurse within the last 13 months. Practices begin on Monday, March 20th, and times are currently to be announced. But information will be sent out once that's determined. Finally, check out our athletic website for more information regarding sports. And that is my report.
Wow.
Any questions?
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I know it.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, too many items for this old brain to remember, but I just want to say that congratulations to all the kids involved in the organizations and the activities that you mentioned. I think it's fantastic for those folks that may be watching to see the good things that are going on with our students in the district. And quite frankly, I think it's great because a lot of the activities that you're involved in and other students are involved in sort of instills a sense of, when you're talking about Special Olympics and the Down syndrome events, sort of instills a sense of, if you will, activism for folks to get involved in issues and that are important, that need to be addressed. And I think that's fantastic. I don't think, unfortunately, enough young people are involved in those sorts of activities inside or outside of school. So I just think it's great to hear. It's a great positive report, so thank you.
Of course.
I'd just like to echo a lot what Greg had said. It was a wonderful report. And how many years now have we been a gold standard?
So 10 with the exclusion of the last. Mr. Chair, Stephanie Rondo, a student council advisor at the high school. We have been a gold council since 2013. They did halt the program in 2021 and 2022 because of COVID. They did an abbreviated program, which we participated in. This was the first year since 2020 that they brought back the full 50-point book because, lots of schools weren't able to do the activities that are required to obtain that score.
So we've been the gold standard for quite a while.
Yes.
And I just want to say congratulations to your leadership,
Thank you.
Ms. Rondo. I think it's, this doesn't happen without some outstanding leadership on your part.
Thank you.
And motivating students to want to give and give back to the school and give back to the community and whatnot. That is a credit to your leadership, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And then, oftentimes we don't hear enough about some of the wonderful things that
Agreed.
our students are doing and the opportunities that our students have and have taken advantage of. So it's a credit to, we have really nice kids at Murdoch.
We do have
who
good
do
kids,
great
yeah.
things. And so we need to recognize that, and that's why I'm glad you did such a thorough report, Angelina. And I'm also happy that you mentioned some of the students by name so that people can understand and recognize some of the leadership that's at the high school from the student point of view. We all know about you, but it's great to hear about some of the other leadership in the school that's happening. I am just so proud tonight. I'm proud to be a Murdoch alumni, hearing all the great things that are happening across the state. And Ms. Rondo and I have also collaborated a little bit in National Honor Society.
Yep, that's coming up next month.
And that's coming up next month, and I'll be there for that
Okay.
to help out. And so there's more leadership coming from our student body. So it's really amazing how a little tiny school from a poor neighborhood can come through and be so active and so inclusive
Yep, agreed.
in their activities. It's just, it's a credit to your leadership again, and it's a credit to the leadership of the staff and the leadership of the administration at the high school and to the superintendent's leadership. It's great that they support all that.
They're very supportive. I agree wholeheartedly there.
Yeah, that whole thing about a village,
Yep.
it sounds corny, but it's really true.
true.
It really is true, so thank you for that.
Sure.
And that's all I've got to say, and I'm looking forward to the Tournament of Plays.
Me too.
It's going to be good.
I think it'll be cool. I love the Tournament of Plays, and good luck to your class.
We're gonna do
Not-
good. I
Not too
know
much
we are.
luck, though. Because you won't need it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Karen?
I want to congratulate all of you, and especially you. My question is, did you do the polar plunge in the pool or at the beach?
Oh, no, we did it at the beach. I do not know what the temperature of the water was. It was extremely
The water was
cold.
42 degrees.
42.
Yeah.
It was very, very cold.
So you
It
were
was
at
very
Hyannis.
windy. It was the first time I've ever done anything like that. Everyone was just like screaming the whole time because it was so windy. But no, it was funny. We all walked. I will show all of you the picture. We all had bald caps and sunglasses and full suits on, and everyone was like, "Pitbull!" It was funny. But no, I suggest you do the polar plunge if you have the opportunity. It's
I-
so fun.
I lived in Boston. I avoided South Boston on that day. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I give you a lot of credit for doing that, though. I do.
it was so fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I'm very glad that you got to go to that conference because I was very disappointed you weren't able to come down to the mask
Yeah.
conference. So I'm glad you got to go to that.
No, and the most exciting part I feel like is that we had our first freshman go down with us. So it was like 3 seniors, four seniors, a sophomore and a freshman. And it gets me excited when freshmen get to come up with us because I didn't get to go freshman year. Like this was my first and last MASC conference, and he seemed to be so excited about it. So it's just fun to watch kids like get excited about student council kind of stuff and like see a bunch of kids from all across the state get excited about doing things in your school.
That's
So
awesome.
I have hope. I'm excited.
Did you enjoy doing the presentation for the other districts?
The workshop, yeah, we did a little one for the middle school council here, but it was pretty good. It was pretty constructive. It was more of a formal informational workshop, but it was definitely interesting to watch kids. They seemed excited and interested about it,
Nice.
so that was good.
Awesome. It sounds like you had fun. And
It was so
congratulations to all of the students who've done all this amazing stuff in your amazingly comprehensive report. And thank you for putting that together.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our subcommittee reports, and starting with the Joint Committee on Cost Revenue Sharing, that is Alicia and Greg, I think? Yes, yes.
It is. I don't know if you want to chime in here, you can. I was at the last meeting, but had to leave early before the vote was taken on the last item that's mentioned in paragraph 4 on the letter that's in your packets. I will say that I really, it's been a good committee to be a part of, because it's been really cooperative. You don't see a lot of head-butting, a lot of competition. I think we all recognize the tough spot that particularly the town is in. They certainly recognize the needs of the district, and some of the good things that have happened to us financially over the past couple of years with state and federal grants that we've received that have helped our bottom line. Unfortunately, the town hasn't been quite as gifted as we have along those lines, and so we've had to struggle with a number of items to sort of figure out how best to share the revenues, quite frankly. And so much of it is explained in the letter before you. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Alicia or Thad, but I think there are some decisions that, that need to be made, and some things that I think that the committee should be made aware of, and quite frankly, I think Thad would be the best one to.
Sure. A couple of things. The committee, as we've referenced in here, and I think at this point the committee is sort of disbanded, if you will.
Which is not to dismiss
No.
Alicia's
If you have
knowledge
something
of
you
what's
wanna
going
add,
on either.
please feel free. At this point, I think the committee took the vote in furthering this work, and that I think at that point that this committee is closed. In terms of a weekly meeting, we talked about meeting maybe once a month or every other month going forward. But two major pieces, that were going on in that work was, one, sort of the revenue sharing, specifically around the override monies and the solar funds. And in the final meeting, the vote was essentially to say that that committee that was comprised of the Board of Selectmen, FinCom, and of course the school committee, was to ask the town manager and I to come up with a plan to go forward on how we sort of share that and how we get to some percentage over net school spending. You'll see in the letter in front of you, Justin and I have met, or the town manager and I have met, where if we were looking at a 5%, 105%, I guess you would say, or 5% over net school spending target, that by the year of FY28, and that's not just a random year, that would be the year following the end of SOA. So the SOA year, FY27, would be the last year of SOA. FY28 would be the first year beyond that. So if we looked at a target of 5% beyond net school spending for that year, what that really comes down to is that the town would need to, Justin and I would need to come up with a plan for essentially getting the town to $1 million over the override to meet 5%, where that's assuming essentially a little bit over $1 million a year in SOA in terms of an increase in our funding. So the town manager and I will work together to see if we can come up with a plan and reduce that to writing in some sort of MOA so that we can go forward and we can kind of put some of this to bed, at least for 5 years, would be very nice. The second component was in this committee was to come up with a way to sort of talk about sharing workforce, if you will. So most specifically right now, we have an opportunity with the retirement of our Director of Facilities, Martin Johnson, to maybe look at a way to share a Director of Public Works and Facilities across the town and schools so that the community can work together a little bit. You'll notice, I believe, in your packets, I believe it's already in here, is we're sort of planning for that in our budget season, and I believe the town manager is as well. We're really, what it hits us in terms of the school side is somewhere around $30,000 increase over what we currently would be carrying. If we continue with our same model, we have about a $30,000 increase in the budget. What that would do is give us a director at sort of the town level over both the facilities, excuse me, in the schools as well as the DPW. And then what we would be doing is sort of hiring a senior facilities person as well. So we would have 2 folks working dedicated full-time facilities where we would have then that next level up would allow us to sort of oversee projects, put out bids, all those types of things that right now becomes very complicated. And as well as sort of increase our efficiencies across the town and schools and working together. So it was really nice for all of us to be working together, I think, as Greg alluded to. So at this point, like I said, we will continue pushing that in the budget, and we'll outline that on the 27th. I believe the town manager is doing the same, and the town manager and I will continue to meet to see if we can hammer out some sort of MOA about revenue sharing as we go forward, and we would expect to see something to that rather soon, in that it does affect this current budget season as well. So you'll notice as well on your cover sheets, the budget that was provided tonight, we don't have anything entered in there currently for the override or solar at this point, as we've not come to that agreement at this time. So that sort of explains that component as well. I think that summarizes it, Greg.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I will say a couple of things. First, I want to thank Member Alicia and Member Greg, as well as the members of the Joint Committee from the Finance Board and the Select Board, because the task before you was a difficult one, and it was one that was necessary to put into writing, both this letter that we have tonight, as well as the future MOA that the superintendent has alluded to provide a set of understanding that will last beyond us. So when we are not on the school committee, or the superintendent, who will be here for another 10 years, but after those 10 years, when he moves on and there is a new superintendent or a new town manager or a new accountant, that we have an agreement, that we understand how revenue will be used both in the current fiscal year, or I should say FY24, and future years. A couple of things that I will point out in the letter, which I have just lost. In the letter, it is very well written in that it, in the 1, 2, 3, third paragraph, indicates that the town manager and superintendent will make data-informed adjustments to the funding for FY24. I suspect that wording was quite intentional, and I'm glad it's in there, because the FY24 budget on the state level is not complete. There is a lot of advocacy happening on Beacon Hill for increases in local aid. If that local aid increase were to affect towns that were being positively affected by SOA, you would expect that reallocation of those funds would be data-informed and happen even as early as FY24. The second thing that's in this letter that I think is very good for it to be written down is the intention of increasing net school spending for our district by 5% over the minimum net school spending that exists right now. That is a significant increase. It would be a significant increase in any year, but in a year where we anticipate that SOA is going to continue to positively affect us over the next FY24, 25, and 26, I believe.
27, yep.
Then at that point, there will be an increase which is substantial, and the fact that it is recognized here, again, for posterity purposes, is a good thing. For the purposes of the minutes, I would ask that we make sure that we document this conversation, which of course we always do, include this memo so that it is in the minutes that will remain on the records, and recognize the commitment that the town manager and the superintendent have made to go further to create a memorandum of understanding specific to the items that remain undefined. So otherwise, very, very happy with the outcome, and very glad that we'll be able to capture that, and tonight's minutes should reflect all that.
Mr. Chair,
Karen?
just to clarify, as you pointed out in paragraph 3, the sentence does clearly state that the superintendent and town manager would make data-supported adjustments to how the funding is allocated. Just to clarify, and sorry, I have a migraine, so I'm working hard here. But you're specifying whether that money is allocated to the town versus the school department, correct? Or am I misunderstanding that?
No, I think you're understanding. I think, again, the target is to get to that 5% over net school spending over 5 years.
Okay.
But it begins this year in terms of what makes sense for both sides, for the community as a whole, as opposed to
Right.
just one or the other. And so trying to work together and make sure that that's data informed. We don't know where other revenue sources might come from, and I don't mean
Right.
revenue in terms of the town per se, but whether that's grants that come in, whether that's fair share, a number of other variables that we, as a school system, and the chair and I have had some conversations even about, we certainly wouldn't want that to be considered a part of, let's say, that 5% over net school spending, if there were things that were, I'm using the word earmarked, but maybe not in the traditional sense, for a school. So we certainly wouldn't want that to be considered a part of that percentage. So making sure that we outline an MOA and think about those things as we move forward
Right.
is really some of those things that we're
I
considering.
just wanted the clarification, just like I said, I'm working
Yeah.
here with a migraine, so I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding correctly, just with the wording being specific. I wanted to make sure that we were not getting into any trouble anywhere.
No, and I think, I mean, they're fair questions, and one of the reasons that we kind of came down this road and as well is without having this type of plan, and we talked about it a lot in these meetings, is there is a penalty if the town doesn't meet net school spending.
I know.
That not everybody realizes, where without a plan, if we just continually say that we work on the governor's original budget, and that changes by the time we vote, we could come up with the town only meeting 99%, at which point they're a percent short, and then the following year, they're penalized by that percent plus having to meet net school spending. So without a plan in place, we have slipped up even recently, in recent times, where that has happened. Sometimes we're up as high as 102 or 103%. With all due respect, it's an accident, right? Because we don't have a particular plan, because the next year we might be underfunded. Again, it's accidental. So we really need to have a plan to protect everybody, and that's really the spirit of this, I think.
And I think you just got to the key of where I was going. I just wanted to make sure we're protecting everybody.
Absolutely.
That's kind of where I was going with that, so thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Comments, questions? Thank you. Calendar Committee, Larry.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair. Our committee has, we had a little trouble. We're going to meet Tuesday, and they were able to do a Zoom meeting. I was not, because I had no power. So I couldn't even use my phone. I lost complete power. But I know that Ms. Rondo and the rest of the committee were able to do, MJ and Andrew and a few others were able to get together. And I've gone through it. It was only a matter of tweaking anyway. We had done the work before. So we just tweaked it a little bit, and I've got one more tweak that I'm going to recommend. But I'll invite Ms. Rondo to come up so that if she would like to jump in any time, it's fine. But I think what we were trying to accomplish was we were trying to, at our first meeting, we talked about, I think we all agreed that we needed to start before Labor Day. Nobody wanted to start after Labor Day, and then run late into June. So we've accomplished that. Second thing we wanted to accomplish, we wanted to spread out the days of school so that each month it was roughly the same amount of days in school. So we wanted to balance the days. And I think with this calendar, we've accomplished that. The third thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to get in the professional development days and the half days that we needed to promote throughout the district. And in a fair and spread out way so that we're not burdening our families with a lot of days at the same time. So we spread them out, and I think we've accomplished that. So it's color-coded, and it's, you know, it's so representative of the group that we worked with. We're very detailed-oriented, so it was great. And it's easy to read. That was another thing. We looked at a number of models from different schools, and we kind of did a model that we thought would work for our district here. And so, as you can see, we've got information on here, phone numbers to call, times for the dismissals, and, you know, so that parents should be able to have just everything that they need in one easy place. They could print this off and put it right on the refrigerator, and it's very user-friendly. So that was the other thing that we wanted to accomplish. Now, I'm going to, did you want to add anything, Ms. Rondo?
I don't think so at this time.
Okay. So there's just two dates I'd like to add. One is, I think we need to add Class Day, because that's a half day.
It's not a half-day. It's a
Well-
regular
well,
school day. Thank you.
Kind of, sort of, right?
Well, we never put those days on the calendar because, as you know, like graduation day may change depending on attendance and things like that, but we never put those days on the calendar. Class Day is a full day of school, so it's not an early dismissal. The kids are in school till 2:05.
Okay, but they're only in school in class, a half a day, right?
We usually dismiss between 12 and 12:30, depending on the program, but they are in school, so they're not dismissed for the program. And we have an assembly schedule where the kids, they run through all the periods, and then like the last period of the day is allocated to be an assembly. And so we take that into account when we figure our time on learning.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Yes?
okay, all right, well,
Larry, I see your point about including them on the calendar, understanding that they can change, having the ability to plan in advance and tell your family that graduation is likely to be on June X, I think has value.
Yeah.
So if we have that date already in mind, we should consider putting it on here.
I'll back off on the Class Day, but the graduation, I think, is really important. And it may change, and
Right.
certainly we can, if the date changes, then we can change it on the calendar. We can let people know that it's changed.
Yep.
But, because people, they plan, some Grammy and Grandpa may come from Florida or something for the thing, and they need to make reservations and all that kind of stuff. So graduation is the big one. I'm not asking for, the prom and senior activities and all that stuff. We don't need that. But I think graduation is the big one.
Okay.
So I'll give in to the Class Day, but I would definitely want graduation on there.
Okay.
And that would be, June
2nd.
2nd?
Yes.
It would be June 2nd. It's usually the first Sunday of June, so it would be June 2nd. And I also want to mention that, unfortunately, we weren't able to, remember I talked about doing the alumni banquet? I was not able to rally the troops enough for this year,
Okay.
but they're excited about next year, and we've already booked the Legion for...
For 24?
24.
Okay.
So there is a group that's interested, but they just felt we couldn't get it together in such short notice. So it will happen the tradition will come back. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steph, did you have anything else? Or-
No, we can certainly put that date on the calendar and just put like something, I don't know, to be determined or
Anticipate.
something anticipated date, just knowing, like, usually that's the day it's going to be, but we can absolutely do that for June 2nd, yeah.
For whomever can answer the question, I'm curious, so first I'm very happy to see the, what are these? The professional development days stacked up in August. I think that's prudent for all kinds of reasons. So thrilled to see that. I assume that this meets all contractual obligations for
Yes.
numbers of days?
We have 4 full-day professional development, the 3 at the beginning of the year to help facilitate the reorganization and staff obligations that would need to be done. And then the 4th day, the elementary principals strongly asked to have it on November 1st, the day after Halloween. So our full-day professional day is scheduled for November 1st, and that was
Really
our
good.
4th day, yeah.
I see the planning there.
The question I think I would have is the half-day P-day. Well, let me back up. Do the full-day professional development days meet contractual obligations?
Yes, we
for
have
this?
4 in our contract, and there are 4 on the calendar.
Perfect. And the partial day professional development days?
We have no contractual language about half-day PDs, and those are usually at the behest of the superintendent, the curriculum director, and/or the principals.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of half-day professional development days on here.
So there are fewer on here than there were on this year's calendar, but after conversation with the superintendent, like, he felt strongly about having those days on the calendar. We do have, a new math curriculum that was launched this year that folks are still getting trained on. Our hope is to have a English curriculum or something. If you recall, Dr. Lamon talked about some of the initiatives last meeting about the English curriculum. So that's the number of days that the administration asked us to put on the calendar, obviously up for debate.
But it does meet the requirement for.
We meet time on learning
days
and the
hours.
days, yes,
It does meet
yes.
for days and hours.
And I
It's,
believe we reduced by 2 this year. I think we've had 7 the past couple of years, and this year you'll notice that there are 5.
Yep, so we did lose, if you look at June, we actually lose 2 half-days in June because we had a professional development day, and then we had 4 half-days at the end of the year for final exams. And so the way that the calendar falls right now, that first Friday in June where we had been having the professional development day is one of the last days of school, so we've lost 2 days right there. And we took away the half-day in October because we have the full-day professional development on November 1st, and we have a holiday on October 9th. So it's actually 3 half-days less than last year's calendar.
Yeah, they were reduced.
The half-days that are on June 7th, 10th, and 11th, those
Yes.
don't appear to be PDs. What happens on those days?
So the last 3 days, those are finals at the high school where the teachers are required to give exams and correct them that day to put in grades. The elementary and middle schools also use those days to do transition or placements for the following year. They would meet to talk about, like, where the 3rd graders go, those kinds of things. And then the last day of school, we are allowed to leave after our obligations have been met, like we've turned in keys, the rooms are clean, books are turned in, et cetera, et cetera.
And if I may, those last half-days, I believe as well, are contractual in terms
Yes,
of
so it
whatever
is-
whatever happens, has to
so
happen
the
across the
contract-
district.
Sorry. The contract currently states that whatever half-days are parsed out for the high school at the end of the year are applied across the district.
Personally, I would like to take some time to digest this. I would prefer not to vote on it tonight. I will if, I will probably abstain if a vote is asked for by the committee, but my preference is to not vote on this and instead just digest it until our next meeting. But if others feel differently, you're welcome to make a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Greg?
Before making a motion, can I make a suggestion? Must get asked every time there's a half-day by parents that I run into, or not even just parents, but townspeople, why do we have so many half-days for the kids? And I'm just wondering if, when these are sent out, if instead of just having people see PD or Prof Dev on the calendar, if it would be possible to send out maybe just a little narrative to the parents with this, explaining what the professional development days are for and why, even though their children aren't in school, it's important to their education, that while they may not be in the classroom, they still benefit in the long run from the half-days that are being scheduled. And the same thing for the 2 days in June as well, just to, so that there is something to give them an idea of what's out there, and hopefully, not that I hate answering questions, but, hopefully there'll be fewer of them throughout the course of the year. So that's just a suggestion, if that's something that could be.
Be happy to do that, and I
Included.
think it is your nature to prefer to ask questions, not to answer.
Yes,
But,
exactly.
be more than happy to put something together, and I think, in this room, we have presented many initiatives that we're endeavoring to sort of partake and finish, and the simple answer is that doesn't happen on its own. So we'd be very happy to put something together, and maybe even a summary after each as well, to sort of, put those out in some professional manner that folks can see what we've been doing on those
Mr.
days.
Chair,
Karen?
might I make the suggestion that we put it on the website?
Right, that's what I just,
Oh,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I didn't hear that part. You kind of trailed off at the end there, so just because I think it's great to have it on the calendar, but 99% of the time, half the questions I get are, oh, when is this date, or when are we doing that? And I send them the calendar.
oh, and
So-
we do currently post the weeks ahead. If it's not a week ahead, it's even more, but each principal sends it out, and then additionally, we do the parent squares and everything else. They
You
get posted
you
a
have
lot
it
of
on
places.
Facebook.
Yep.
I understand
It's
that.
all over the place.
I'm just saying that, the more places I can point them to,
Yep.
the better. Because, if we have it in writing on the website, great.
So-
Larry?
Yeah. So I guess, I agree with Karen that, the more places you can post it. But when you do those parent squares and you send, because we get those too, but every family of a student, every student's family gets one of those.
Correct.
Correct. So they do get an announcement ahead of time. And then to piggyback on what Greg said, if somewhere in that announcement, that there's just a brief, we're working on our goal to complete the ELL curriculum by June 17th or whatever. Something simple, not a big, long thing with a bunch of, acronyms that Greg will never remember.
That I don't know to begin with.
So, just something simple that, the high school's working on this, and the middle school's working on, or the entire district is working on curriculum.
Absolutely, and I think folks like to see an easy bulleted list oftentimes
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
nice way to just
So-
distill it instead of being too wordy. So it's a great suggestion for us to just put forth, as we say, that what the half-days, when the half-days are coming up. That's easy.
Yeah, and just so that people know too, and I want to emphasize again that even though we have a movement for early learning center, we have condensed from 7 to 5. I'm sure the staff would appreciate those other two so that they could, get packed up and get all the stuff they need to do to move. But, I applaud the committee for understanding that, class time's important. And so we have, even though we have a big move planned, we've still managed to decrease the half-days by 2. So kudos, 3, I'm sorry, right, 3. We've managed to decrease them by 3. So that's a good thing. And Greg, I think a simple thing is to just say that if someone asks, just say that the half-days are to complete the work
Yeah.
based on the goals that the district has set. They
Sure.
need time to complete the goals.
Yeah.
And that's it. Tell them to look it up on the website.
I'm
or
going to
on
say it's to
Facebook.
party.
Yeah, or on Facebook, or call Karen. Give out Karen's number.
There you go.
Mr. Chair?
Greg?
I'd make a motion that we table a vote on the calendar until our next meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion to table item 8B until the school committee's next meeting?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, if I may. We're voting on the next meeting. Come heck or high water, we're voting because I think we got to get this out to the public so that they can make plans, especially those that want to know the graduation date and they want to make travel plans and all that stuff. So if we could be definitive on our next meeting, that would be great.
Thank you. Other discussion? Okay, the vote. Karen?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Alicia?
Yay.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Greg?
Since we're talking about calendar here, Mr. King, just curious, how with the snow days that we've had this year, how is that affecting our calendar for the rest of this academic year?
I knew you liked to ask questions.
We're getting out of school.
It's impacting us. Right now, our last day of school is the 27th, which is the last week of June.
I'm
you know, we've
sorry,
had,
I'm
I
from
believe,
Boston. That's a normal end of
8
school day.
days off the top of my head at this point. 2 of those days specifically were, we had 3 consecutive days for one of the storms, not all of which were necessarily the storm itself, but were the fallout. So we had the limbs and so on and so forth that fell and kept us from, and power outages and so on. So we have had 8 days. We are now at June 27th is the last day of school, which is a Tuesday.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, if I can, I just want to, well, I suppose I could save this till the end, but I want to thank you and the other folks involved in opening up the high school as a warming station this week for folks that may have needed it. I don't know how many people took advantage of it. I drove by yesterday morning, and I didn't see a lot of folks there, but anyway, I think it's a great idea and appreciate the fact that that was done.
Oh, great, thank you, and I think we really appreciate our custodial and facility staff for manning that, if you will, which they did overnight. We had a few folks, not a lot of folks showed up, but we did have some folks show up, and you know, we're always happy to help, and we're just fortunate that we had the generator running and that everything was working, you know, in the high school, quite frankly. So there was a lot of work and a lot of effort by a lot of folks, as you alluded to. We're very appreciative of the town as well for helping us out and getting the lots cleared so that we could actually get in here even today. It was hard to keep up with. I'm sure the folks in town recognize that, and appreciative of all the work and hours that folks put in to get us back in here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, that brings us to new business and the MASC conference update. Karen?
Can I say it's really old business?
Yes.
Just saying. All right, so, finally, the Mass Joint Conference, which was the Mass Association of School Committees and School Superintendents Joint Conference, was held November 2nd through 5th of 2022, hence the old business, at the Hyannis Conference Center, where you recently were. And I was unfortunately the only one that was able to attend. Hopefully next year more of us will be able to attend because it is a great event. And the first order of business was the delegate meeting and resolutions, which was great. I had been told that, and I'm sure Larry can testify to this, that most resolutions, usually there are about 8 or 9 resolutions, and maybe 1 or 2 are held for conversation, all except for 1 were held out of all the resolutions. So there was a lot of conversation that day. I am going to email you all of the resolutions. There were great ones, but there were 87 delegates representing the school districts across the state. Obviously, that does not represent all of our school districts. The meeting was led by then MASC President Andrea Wadsworth, and there was a financial report. In the absence of the nominating committee chair, Ellen Holmes, the president-elect Stacy Rizzo presided over the board elections. We now have a new board. I'll get to that a little bit later. And I'm not going to get into all the details of the conversations, obviously, because that would take forever. But the new board of directors, I do want to give you that rundown. Our new president-elect are Mildred LaFay, Vice President Jason Fraser, Secretary Treasurer is Denise Hurst, and Stacy Rizzo is our new president-elect, who became our president on January 1st, so technically she's our president now. And Andrea Wadsworth is our immediate past president. So if you're on Facebook, you'll see a lot of posts to MASC still by Andrea Wadsworth, because she is still doing a lot of the posting for the board. There were six proposed resolution, and I know Larry and I both got the printouts, bless you. In the interest of expediting the discussion, like I said, there was the request to go through and ask for anybody to speak up for holding. That did not go the way anybody planned. We spent a lot more time there. I think, Larry, when you've gone before, you probably had a lot more time before the delegates' dinner than we did. We just barely made it. I'm just going to give you the titles and tell you if they passed or failed, because otherwise it's going to be too much to get into. The first resolution was regarding sanctuary rights for the transgender students. That did have an amendment added to it, which did carry, and the resolution did pass as amended. Resolution 3, which was membership on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, which I do want to clarify on that, is about having membership of educators and school committee members, because that has not been allowed previously. There was an amendment to that, and it did pass. Resolution 4, which is preserving local governance of Massachusetts schools. I am going to tell you that that has to do with more with having turnaround schools. So if you're not familiar with Lawrence and Holyoke and Southbridge, they've all been state takeover, and they've been state takeover for quite a long time. So now there is a resolution asking that the state return those schools back to their local governance, because right now, though there are school committees in place, they have no say over the governance of their schools. That did pass unanimously.
Did you say that resolution had an amendment?
That one did not.
No.
It's one of the few that did not. There was a personal financial literacy education resolution. And this is to file legislation that would ensure that all students have exposure to financial literacy curricula. And this was approved as presented on a voice vote, so unanimously. And then this one's very confusing if you're not in a regional school district, but I'm going to send all of this to you so you can see the exact wording. There was a proposed amendment which failed, so I did not put it in here because it was way too confusing and it was very convoluted. But if you want it, I can send it to you, Ryan, because I know you might be interested in it. But the resolution passed as originally presented on a voice vote. As I stated before, the delegates were lucky to make it to the keynote dinner at all. We did make it in time to hear from Diane Kelly, who is the Revere superintendent, and Frank Henderson, the National School Boards Association president. They were followed by the keynote speaker, who was then the DESE Commissioner, Jeff Riley. Each night of the conference, we heard from different speakers, all of whom gave us useful insights and information, as well as letting us know, in many cases, that we were all in the same boat. And that, you know, what we see here in Massachusetts is happening across the entire country. And we also celebrated the transition of leadership of Mass Association of School Committees one night. There was a definite theme to the conference, which revolved around diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also a lot of COVID. Even if it wasn't necessarily part of the plan, because it wasn't, and not just because, unfortunately, a lot of us, there were about 50 of us that came home from the conference with COVID. That was definitely not part of the plan.
Yeah.
Tracy and I were two of the afflicted. Each day started with a general session, such as understanding the student mental health crisis, causes, impact, and solution. And that one is titled "The Kids Are Not All Right." And that handout is in the email packet you got at last month's meeting. And that was presented by Dr. Nicholas Cavino and Dr. Nadia Lopez Riley, which was so full of information, and they were amazing, honestly. It was concerning, but so helpful, and there was so much hope in their message, even though there were parts of it, honestly, that made me want to cry. The other featured sessions were just as great, but I'll be honest with you, the Friday general session was the best, and one of the reasons it was the best was, as usual, as always, students steal the show. And it was Helen and Grace from Cambridge Orange and Ladin who made it real, and I mean really real, in the ballroom for everybody. And they were swamped after the ballroom, after the general session. And I wish I had a handout for that, but I have not been able to get one. And I've called Mask and asked for one, and they don't have one. So if I ever get one, I will pass it on because it was amazing. And lest you believe that all the conference was general assemblies and lunches and dinners, rest assured, in between those, which were working events too, I might add, I was attending intense workshops, our division meeting, and learning as much as I could from others at the conference. And I just want to give you a brief list of the workshops. There was LGBTQ inclusion for administrative leadership, and though I'm not an administrator, I wanted to go. And Jeff Perotti, who's the senior consultant for Safe Schools programs, is amazing and did an amazing presentation that, you know, even though I live with an LGBTQ student, it opened up my eyes to a bunch of other things that I hadn't thought of in the school setting. Proactive communication, telling your district story effectively, which I think that will come in handy with our communication committee, and was presented by a dear friend of mine who used me as a very, very bad example. He was the former communications director for Boston Public Schools, so when he wanted to use that annoying parent, guess who he used? Larry can guess. He was like, just ask Karen. So there's a handout for that in your email packet too. Surviving and Thriving in Challenging Times General Session was presented by Diane Kelly and Robert Evans. Building an Inclusive, Equitable Culture in Your District, 8 actionable strategies. I believe I have that, but I was not able to scan it correctly. It was really coming out weird, so I'm going to try and get a copy from Mask for you guys. Superintendent evaluation, we all have part of that. I think I scanned the whole thing to you guys. And special education, what school committee members need to know. That was just in an info session. Parliamentary procedures, which was presented by Glenn Kloshner, which, I mean, he's great. Student representatives to the school committee, presented by the Mass Association of Student Representatives Board of Directors, was fabulous. And Is My State Aid Going Up? The Student Opportunity Act, Target Share and Hold Harmless, presented by Tracy Novick, which was standing room only, and fabulous. There were many other workshops I would have loved to go to, but they were all obviously scheduled simultaneously, and that's where any conferences that I used to go to, going as a group is a great thing because then you can divide and conquer and share information and do it, kind of bring it all back. But I do think I brought back a lot of information that'll be helpful to our committee, and I hope that you get a chance to look at everything that I did get to send you so far and anything I can bring you. I do think the things that I have will help us, and if you have any questions, let me know. I do recommend that if we go in the future, we wear masks at all times, because from now on, I'm not going there without a mask. And the conference is truly exhausting, I will say that. It's from, you get up at like 7, you go, you can go to the continental breakfast, but honestly, I barely ate and I barely slept because it was just go, go, go the entire time. So, Larry, God bless you for going for years.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Just one comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes?
I just want to thank you, Karen, for going. And I know it's been a while, but still, the information is still golden. So it took a while to get it, but that's fine. We can still benefit from it. And it was good to have our district represented. I'm glad we're one of the 87 that chose to go.
Well, I will say there were more there eventually, but there were only 87 delegates represented, which is disappointing when you think about it.
Well, it's 350
51, 53? 51, yeah.
ish.
Yeah, ish.
Ish.
Well, I know Project 351 is. That's why. Right, yeah. Yeah, so is Ronan. No wonder you're buddies. Sorry.
They're having a moment.
Yes. We have to connect you two on that, sorry.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right.
Nope.
Thank you, Karen. Old business, I don't think we have any. Not new business. Future agenda items, we have the school choice on there. Thank you very much for that. I think we added one other item that's slipping my mind right now.
Well, we've got the DESI SOA report when
Yeah.
that comes due, and then we have the calendar vote for the next meeting.
Perfect. We also have our next meeting will include, no, our next get-together is the budget hearing. Budget hearing is on March 27th at 4:30. Thank you. And the public announcement will go out for that in the amount of time that's necessary for a budget hearing. I will be in touch with the members about that day. The hearing is set for March 27th at 4:30, but the meeting that was following that is not possible for the Finance Committee. So we will have to reconsider when we can meet with the Finance Committee, but we'll be in touch about that scheduling after the meeting. Any other future agenda items? Okay, good deal. So we are at closing comments, and we'll start with Karen.
I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work that has been going on in the school district, and the students for putting up with all the changes to the calendar, and to the calendar committee, especially for having to deal with all the changes for the calendars, and poor Larry with no power. But I do want to thank the school for opening up for people. Unfortunately, because I have animals, I couldn't take use of the warming center, which I would have loved because we lost power too, but I won't leave my fur babies, sorry. But I do think it was great that even, a few people got to use the school. It was great. It's great to live in a community where I know that we have those resources. And I would also like to send a special shout out to all the kids taking part in the Tournament of Plays and the kids that are going to be doing the, Memorial's Got Talent? Toy Town's Got Talent. I definitely have to, what day is that again? You're supposed to know. The 31st, okay. Well, Tournament of Plays, I definitely have to see. I have to see if you make it this year, since, last year the seniors beat you guys. I don't want to talk about that. But you're seniors this year, so I expect you to win. But I definitely have to see the Got Talent show, too, Toy Town Got Talent. So I look forward to that, and hopefully no more snow.
Larry?
I think I've said everything I wanted to say tonight. I've thanked everybody and their brother, and I'm just happy that we're moving in the right direction in all areas. So thank you to all the hard work that everybody's been doing.
Greg?
I'll just echo what Mr. Murphy said and move on.
Alicia?
Enjoy March Madness.
Yeah.
Started today.
People lost
And
today.
thank you to everyone too, yes.
And world peace.
What's your favorite date?
Go Virginia.
Favorite date? What?
Go Virginia.
Yeah, they lost.
Not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not so much. All right, great. Thank you very much, Angelina, for that fantastic report as always, and congratulations on the award. Your materials, don't leave without them. They were beautiful. Thank you to the Joint Revenue Committee and the Calendar Committee. That's real work got done there, and it's important, so thank you very much. And that's about it for me. Happy to take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved?
Second.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. Thanks, everybody.